I experience and describe place with differing degrees of intensity or of concentration, of objectivity and subjectivity. And what I'd like to do is give some examples and then try to describe how those three different processes work for me. I'm using some of my recent Indian experience, of course, the mountain thing, to inform this talk. It's still quite new, and some of these bits of writing I know are likely to change over time anyway. Here goes. So, one of the reasons that I chose to come to the Himalaya at this time of year was to do with the apple harvest in Himachal Pradesh. This is because I have a mild obsession not so much with apples, but with Samuel Evans Stokes, who was the American Quaker who brought red delicious apples to HP 100 years ago and started the transformation essentially of that region's economy. I was about to go into an apple thing. I won't. Your eyes will glaze over, trust me. Anyway, what eventually came out of that was, if you like, a sort of benign colonialism by apple, I suppose. And Stokes became better known in India, I'm sure many of you know, as Satyanand Stokes, one of Gandhi's inner circle. He was imprisoned during the struggle for Indian independence and so on. That's another story. Anyway, I was lucky enough to be able to have a contact with his grandson, Vijay Stokes, and I went to stay at Harmony Hall Orchards near Kotgar, northeast of Shimla, on the way to the Kinnaur Valley. And I've been writing in a variety of ways about how that experience and the landscapes there opened up to me. So first of all, this is an extract from the sort of thing I'd write as a travel journalist about this apple country if I was updating the Lonely Planet India guidebook. In fact, the current author who's updating Himachal Pradesh was in town a week ago, and I met up and we had a chat then. Anyway, so the old Hindustan-Tibet highway was built by the British as a combined trade and potential invasion route into Tibet. Runs northeast from Shimla through apple country in the foothills of the Himalayas. Sorry, Himalayas, I can't get that right. It's a spectacular and quite frankly terrifying trip on a road that sometimes isn't much wider than it was when only mules used it. Zigzagging along steep hillsides through cloud-filled valleys with jagged mountains. In the distance, you'll need to allow at least 4 hours to get to apple heartland around Kotgar, ... And I would go on then to talk about transport options and give some hotel and restaurant reviews. And this is what I guess I'd call travel journalism. It's very specific. It's written for and marketed to a known audience. Readers are addressed directly. You'll need to allow 4 hours. Needs of the readers are always in mind, and objectivity really is a priority. There's a bit of subjective response there. To me, the road was terrifying, but it's muted. The focus is quite factual and narrow, and there's not much scope for creativity or imagination. Also, the language is quite precise. Where adjectives are used, they're used for a purpose. For example, if I write about valleys as often cloud-filled, that means readers will know not to always expect clear days, and that might help photographers make a decision about when they're going to go to that part of the country. Travel journalism also has a word count that can't be overrun. It's around 600 words for most of the columns that I write, which kind of further compacts the use of language, so a lot of information gets packed into sentences. And here's the same location and experience described in an extract from a piece of travel writing for the BBC Travels website. It should be up there in about 10 days, I think. It's called Take Your Pick, Apple Harvest in the Foothills of the Himalayas, and the extract starts with a subheading, Highways and Byways. Heading into the Himalayan foothills, northeast from Shimla, in northern India's state of Himachal Pradesh, the main road still follows the old Hindustan-Tibet trade route. This is National Highway 22, where vertiginous slopes rise and fall on either side, and the narrow road zigzags through progressively spectacular landscape. Cloud settles on the valley floors. Foothills give way to a backdrop of snow-covered mountains in the distance. Second subhead, picking and choosing. About 40 kilometres north of Shimla, the township of Teog marks the start of apple orchard country. Picking starts in July, and by September, in late monsoon, it's time to harvest the second crop. Trees are swathed in nets to protect from monkeys and birds, and are in turn swathed by creeping mist. Orchards are planted fairly pragmatically here, where flat land is at a premium. They step higgledy-piggledy up slopes, and so on. This is the same place, but it's actually a bit different.